Hello, everybody. How's it going? Spidey fan, John Jones, Janine, Chester, and everybody else who's going to come in later. How are we doing? It is the 26th. We got 2 more days left of February, and I can feel the warmth in the air. Today, it's about what right now? I think it's about 50 degrees outside. So it's here. It's coming. Spring is coming. Open the windows today. Open up the windows and saw all the dust fly out and saw all the pollen starting to come in. It's going to be great. You know, I didn't buy much this week because Wednesday is usually when the new comic books come out, and we're doing this a day early. Usually I have this on Thursday or Fridays when Darren and I can't, get along to do lives or recordings. And I did it a day ahead of time, because we got stuff coming up. The only thing I did purchase at my local FYE is that right behind me. This little book bag from Culture Fly, Loungefly. And it's the new Myers book bag. There's a lot of them around. I don't think there's any that are licensed. Some of these are custom made, but this is actually official licensed. I got to keep it away from my kids, but I don't even know what's inside. I didn't even open it. Just paper and bubble wrap. It's all it is inside to make everything look bigger. What else? Actually, there might be something inside there. I feel something. Oh, it's just the bottom. I thought it was like a sticker or something. Maybe like a prize or something like that. But yeah, these are not cheap. Pat and Brett and anybody who follows or collects Halloween stuff will let you know that Loungefly or Culture Fly is not really that cheap. Some of that stuff is expensive unless you go to the Five Below store. But yeah, that's what I got. I had a coupon too, so the reason why I got it. I don't have any room. I just don't have any room. Hey, Brandon Lorraine, what's going on? Hey, Dean. Hey, Michael. Brandon Collins. Hey, Jordan. What's up, guy? Jay Beach. Wade F. and Wilson is here. Okay. We are tasked with one of the most difficult things ever to do on trying to defend a bad movie, and that is trying to defend Freddy's Dead. First of all, how do you guys feel about Freddy's Dead? I know our buddy Chris Stanley, Cosplay Chris, and Chris Stanley with for his own channel with the same name. He loves this movie. He understands that it's corny, it's messed up, it's stupid, but he has, the nostalgia going with it. It's the first movie I believe he saw in the theater of the franchise, which is absolutely mine too. This is the first movie I actually saw of Elm Street in the theater. But I've seen the other movies before, but this happens to be the first one, just like how Jason X was my first one for that franchise. But then for me, as you know, if you follow The Slaughter Lamb, my favorite Halloween movie of all time in the franchise is Halloween 4. Because that's the first movie I saw in the theater. And I get that. We all get that. We all gravitate to the first movie we saw. It opened up our mind. It opened up feelings that we never had to seeing something on the big screen, and probably got our enjoyment. Any movie that you guys, saw for the first time in the theater, it got your juices flowing to go to the movies or just sit at home with the lights out, big bowl of popcorn, your favorite beverage, and watch a movie. And you know what? Granted, out of all of them, Jason X, Freddy's Dead, and Halloween 4 being the ones of the slashers that I saw in the theater the first time, I think Halloween 4 is probably the best. Michael, okay, I'm going to try. So Michael says, go ahead, defend this piece of shite Well, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try. I do have after we talk about it, I'm gonna do something new at the end of each one of these movies. One of the at each end of these slides, I should say. I'm gonna put whether it's defendable or undefendable. And I need you guys to help me out. All right, because this was difficult. This was really difficult. I watched the movie again and I did chuckle. I did chuckle. So it let's get into it. Let's get into it. But I want to get to Brandon Collins here. I want to get to some of your comments first. Brandon says Freddy's Dead is such a bad movie, but I don't hate it. I enjoy it for how bad it is. It's like a car wreck. It's an absolute car wreck, right, Brandon? So when you're driving or you're with somebody and you see a car accident, you just look at it, and your first, if it's really bad, and the first thing that comes to your mind is whether or not those people survive. Look at that? Look at all that mangle, you know, metal and fiberglass and regular glass all over the place. How can anybody survive that? But you're not thinking about it in long terms, are you? You're just thinking about at the end. At the beginning of what you first saw. So yeah. As Brett here says, one sheet teaser poster was cool. Okay. What's up, Brett? I was disappointed when it came out. Yvette Koto cast and this was random to me. Yeah. I mean, just him, coming from a James Bond movie and being some good villains and characters. It's just weird him being in there. Paycheck, I guess. John Jones says Freddy's Dead is so awful. It's my least watch in the franchise, but I have fond memories from Barks root beer promotion for the film. Yeah, because you actually got the 3D glasses for it, or they gave it to you in the theater. I think there's two different versions, if I'm not mistaken. But let's see. Craig says I saw it all in one day with parts 2 and 3, as these were the only movies I could get on VHS at the time. So I don't hate it as much as those who saw the individual films on their release. I guess that makes sense, right? Right? John Jones. Also, the video scene just makes my eyes roll. Great graphics. I can't do that voice. I'm not going to. Shut the fuck up, Freddy. More difficult than Resurrection? Yes. Yes, this was difficult. Because Freddy shouldn't evolve, right? Can Michael evolve? He doesn't do anything. The problem is, Michael, if you think about it, Freddy talks. Some of his lines were just awful, right? So, what's more awful, ladies and gentlemen? Being emasculated by Busta Rhymes and walking away getting a shellacking, a verbal shellacking, or, having one of your favorite slashers, no screaming while the bus is in motion. Oh, you forgot the power glove. Stuff like that. But he's supposed to have these wise cracks, but they were supposed to actually be scary too. Like, sorry, kid, I don't believe in fairy tales, and then being stabbed or gutted, stuff like that. But you forget the power glove is kind of it was the sign of the time, I guess. Was the power glove a rage in 91? I thought it came out like in mid to late 80s. And I think it didn't even work half the time. I remember seeing it in The Wizard. So let me really quick. The Wizard. Not The Wizard of Oz, stupid. The Wizard. The Wizard came out in 89. So the Power Glove. Let's put Power Glove introduction. At 89. All right, so it's been out for 2 years. Which goes for a mint now. It goes for a mint. Okay, what else? Martin says Freddy's Dead was such an event at the time of the release. It was. I'll get to that too. There's something, it's just, I don't know. Chester goes, Freddy's Dead is a terrible piece of garbage film. Oh man, let's see. Craig also says, for those who saw it in the theaters, can you remember what they removed, as every home video release of this film is shorter to its original theatrical release? Oh, one line of the Freddy nursery rhyme when Maggie walks past random bits of graffiti with it written is missing. Oh yeah, it's the 1 2 Freddy's coming for you, and then oh my god. So Brandon goes, my mom's new boyfriend was trying to impress me, so he bought me the Power Glove. That piece of shit never worked. I mean, though, if yeah, all right, there we go. Darren says throwing stars were removed. Were they? I don't know. I didn't really try to do a deep dive in this movie, but all right, let's bring up everything. Let's see. I found some facts, but I didn't dive into it. I didn't try to, find interviews with post production or, the special effects artists or anything like that. Just the main people involved. So let's get into it. Let's start with, Freddy's Dead, 1991. We got Rachel there being the director and Mike DeLuca being the writer. I mean, Rachel and Mike. I mean, we all know Rachel. I mean, she's been with the series and New Line for years, just as more as Robert Shea. So Mike DeLuca, 22% Rotten Tomatoes, 32% with the audience, 10 million budget, 35 mil at the box office. So some interesting facts here that I have is that Mike wrote for Freddy's Nightmares to begin with, and he was nominated for 3 Oscars, if you could believe that. So the 3 Oscars he was nominated for was for Best Picture. So he would have gone up there with the producers and everything like that. So Social Network, Moneyball, and Captain Phillips. Hey, Toronto, what's going on, buddy? Toronto says, I hate the remake. Freddy's Dead, I am not very fond of. Yeah, the remake is another thing. I may save that for another episode. But yeah. Okay. So, and then, but this guy's also responsible, Mike DeLuca, for some of our favorite movies. So okay, let me just say this. He was responsible for Seven, Boogie Nights, Austin Powers, Rush Hour, Blade, American History X, and Magnolia. So out of those 7 movies I just named, I guaranteed at least 4 to 5 of those you guys like. So maybe he's a better, office man, suit and tie man than he is a writer. So, Mike, do me a favor. Stay behind the desk. I think he's with Warner Brothers now, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe he's with MGM. No, he's with his Discovery now. So, yeah. And he's married to the first Bachelorette. That's all I know about him. So, yeah, Mike, you're not watching this. That's okay. Stay where you are. Give us good content. Stay, the president of production. Stop writing, because it seems not to be working with Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. I mean, maybe it was your first introduction to horror, but you've been working with Freddy's Nightmares for years. You were on that. So, yeah, Darren on the Slaughter Lamb. Why am I saying Darren from the Slaughter Lamb? That doesn't make any sense. TSL Movie Podcast. That's the way I'm going to say it now. 3 of the best Sony movies in the last 20 years. Yeah, he's responsible. So stay there. Just keep, Dean, keep up good petting, Mike. I mean, he's got a beautiful family, and look at that. So anytime you see a writer, look at that screen. Anytime you see a writer with a suit and tie on, he has lost his way, and now he's a pencil pusher. He counts money. He sits behind a desk with a leather chair, probably from a cow that was flown in from India that was blessed. drives, probably what's an expensive car? I don't want to say Lamborghini, like an Aston Martin, and probably has the wheel on the opposite side, like they do in Europe, just to be, you know, different than anybody else. That's how you know that this guy is, you know, getting getting out of his, way with writing. You can't. Craig says, didn't Bob Shea sack DeLuca after he received a very public sexual act at a holiday party? I mean, that's maybe because Robert was jealous. Bob was jealous. Robert was jealous. I mean, Christ. Okay. So 22%, 32%. I kind of agree with that. We'll get to some comments in a minute, but 10 mil, box office 35 mil. It was number one for 2 weeks. That's not saying anything. Captain America is number one for 2 weeks. That's just because it's up against shit. I don't think Don't Breathe is going to, is it Don't Breathe or The Last Breath? Whatever the one with Woody Harrelson's coming out. Don't Breathe. I think is going to be for 3 weeks, number one. So, yeah. Craig also said DeLuca wrote In the Mouth of Madness, which is great. He did a lot of episodes of Freddy's Nightmares that weren't exactly Freddy Gold either. I know. Okay. Next thing. Let's talk about this a little bit. So here are some of the critics' reviews. So I tried to do a 50-50 result here. So Kim from Empire Magazine, we all know him. The one interesting idea, what would be a town, what would a town be like if all the teenagers in it had been slaughtered in 5 movies, is thrown away for a few cheap jokes. Well, the town is empty. All the teenagers are gone. So, I mean, do we still keep going with teenagers? I mean, when do you stop and when do you start continuing with the same horror tropes with Freddy's with Freddy Krueger, with Nightmare on Elm Street? I mean, kids are dying left and right through 5 movies. And then people are scratching their head and saying, well, what is this? Mass suicide? Mass hysteria going on? So I understand they were trying to do something different. Oh, well, let's keep going. Janet, from the New York Times says she actually liked it. She said the Elm Street films have always been a cut above the competition, so to speak, with their playful, malevolent dream sequences and their mocking, ever-resourceful villain. Yeah. I mean, out of all the slashers, he's the only one that talks, right? I don't count Pinhead, though. Or Leatherface. He kind of just mumbles, doesn't he? All right. Then Owen here from Entertainment Weekly says the joke is on the filmmakers. By taking the finality out of death, they've already robbed the horror genre of its giddy sting. Yeah, the ending is kind of shit, isn't it? And then last here is the 6th and final edition of this. The 6th and final edition in the Nightmare on Elm Street feature series delivers enough violence, black humor, and even a final reel in 3D to hit pay dirt with horror-starved audiences. Now, I remember the 3D. I thought it was actually quite weird. So when you walked into this theater, it's the usher or the ticket taker or even the concession stand would give you your glasses, and they would remind you when to put the 3D glasses on. The problem is that the 3D glasses are plastic, right? You get them, they're plastic, and now the 3D is from start to finish. This, you had to be reminded to put the 3D glasses on, the paper ones on, when Maggie puts them on. But the problem is that when you put them on, throughout the whole movie, it was a distraction because I would watch this movie with the 3D glasses on with no 3D effect. So that's the first thing that I hate about this film is that if you're going to do 3D, 3D has to be throughout the whole movie, not just pick and choose. And when you pick and choose when we're going to be watching 3D, you're going to have people put on those glasses all the time and just distract you from the actual movie. And Michael says a lot of these critics are pretentious. Yeah, they are, but you know what? They're the critics. They're the critic score. And I try to find the way of trying to defend this movie by looking at some of what the critics are saying and take that into account. But it's hard. It really is hard, especially with the 3D. How did this it would have been better if this movie wasn't in 3D, to be honest, because the 3D did not hit pay dirt. I don't think a horror movie should be in 3D. I haven't seen one that actually worked yet. The one, I think Jaws 3D worked at the time, or is that as far stretch? It must have been a stretch, because I don't think anything's good in 3D. I mean, do they even sell 3D televisions anymore? I don't think so. I really don't. No, I don't think they. I think it was okay at the time, and then people wanted one, and now I don't think they sell them, because it is just a pain. It's a pain in the ass putting on these damn glasses, breaking them, losing them, and then certain functions work with it. And what Dare and I were talking about when we did Jaws 3D is that they just put in 3D effects just to prove that they did or make it 3D, like the tentacle from the octopus, or an arm floating, which is just like it was. They couldn't do anything more than that because it's expensive. Doing everything in 3D is expensive. So with Freddy, they did what for 3D? They did the little sperms, the dream sperms. They did Freddy's glove when it flies off. Definitely when Freddy died. That's another one. I know the whole thing was set up that way in 3D when Maggie put them on, but I'm just trying to think of the effects of it jumping out on you. And the one thing that bothers me too is, of course, Doc had to give her these glasses and say, once you enter the dream world, put these on, and you could tell the difference between a dream and some other bullshit. So the one part that bothered me, as I was alluding to, was her putting on the glasses. Okay, we all got our glasses ready. We put it on, and she gave you enough time. She got the glasses out, and she was putting them on. And when she puts them on, it's about maybe 2 or 3 seconds. It dissolves. 3D happens. So you're telling your audience that now's the time to put on your glasses, and we're giving you visual instruction, but you're dumb. Why couldn't they just say, put on 3D glasses now, and then you start doing it? I mean, that would have been a better instruction than having Mackie, do this shit. This is fucking stupid. I don't fucking get it. Dean goes, where is it, Dean? Let me see. There it is. Dean says Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2013 almost works with some of the 3D gimmicks. I saw in the theater in 3D, and the glasses were so much better in 2013. I distinctly remember Leatherface throwing the chainsaw at the screen. See, some of that, I mean, if you're going to be in 3D, be in 3D through the whole movie, not probably just the worst part, the third act of this film. Brandon says, I mean, film criticism used to be done by folks like Roger Ebert and Pauline, was it Kael? Never heard of her. Keel. Ebert won the Pulitzer. Nowadays, most films critics just sound like us. Yeah. They don't even get paid for it anymore. It's not worth it. I'd rather get an audience's review than, like Michael said, Pretentious snobs. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. This is going to be a long time, guys. This is going to be short. We had already been on for almost a half hour. Let's get to it. All right, let me shrink me down so I can read all this for you. This is from Rachel and what she explains on how she went about making from Freddy's Dead. All right. We wanted to kill Freddy for good. We've been making a film a year and it was too much. So, am I here? Just let me know if I'm still here, guys. I shouldn't have left. Says I booted out. If I'm here, just give me a thumbs up and I'll start again. Let me know if I'm still here. In the meantime, I'm still going to read. Here we go. We wanted to kill Freddy for good. We've been making a film a year, and it was too much. We've been making a film. Okay, thanks, Dean. We wanted to kill Freddy for good. We've been making a film a year, and it was too much. It was the time of Twin Peaks. She was involved in Twin Peaks, ladies and gentlemen. So we wanted lots of cameos and weird, dark humor. 3D was really unwieldy, and it didn't work very well. We didn't have the resources to test the technology well enough, so we were winging it. I think it barely worked and limited everything I could do at the end. It was pure gimmick and cost a lot of money that I would have used to make the rest of the film better and not have a lame ending take place in a room the size of my bedroom. The other day, I was discussing with my man whether it was a mistake to go the humorous tongue-in-cheek route with Freddy. I wonder if we should have gone full-on horror. He reminded me that at the time, it was the right decision. We were burned out of ideas on scripts, and horror was predictable. We were looking for something to make it different. So, do you guys agree with what Rachel is saying? So, she's basically saying that with Freddy was getting very old. He was getting to the part where he was being, horror in general was being very predictable. So they wanted something different. They wanted dark humor. They wanted, because this movie only has 3 kills and so does the first one. So you had Carlos, Spence, and John Doe all dying in very funny ways. Nothing tragic here, except for maybe the bed of spikes. But I think when it comes to this and the way Freddy is, I think it works. I think what Robert did as Freddy actually works. Now, I'm not saying the whole movie is perfect, especially Roseanne and Tom Arnold showing up. I'm like, what the hell was that all about? I think the way Freddy did it, it sounded like Robert was trying to have fun. Freddy was dying. Freddy wasn't dying. They told him Freddy was going to be dead. This is your last movie. This is your last movie for that time. Let's go out and have fun. And he absolutely said, okay. Now, I don't think there's a interview with Robert talking about any of his negative views on any of the Nightmare on Elm Street films. I think he has brand loyalty, and I think he knows that some of the fans love different movies, different installments of the franchise. So I'm thinking he just had fun with it and just be a comedian for a little bit. And you know what? In some parts, it works. One of my favorite moments in Freddy's Dead is when he's pushing out the bed of spikes, right? So, and then he looks at the camera, breaking the fourth wall, and goes, "Whew." He's never done that before. Freddy's never looked at the camera. I mean, he's looked at the camera, but he thinks he's speaking to his victim, but he's not looking at the audience. And for that one split moment, he's looking at you, which I found funny. I found interesting. You know, it's Craig says the Dream Police idea, bringing back some of the Dream Warriors, could have been a better send off. Yeah, I get it. It would have been. You get some of the Dream Warriors back. You bring back, Alice. You just have one massive fight. But I think the logistics of it, or egos on set, just would have just ruined the movie. It might have gotten halfway through. I don't know. So I knew what I could see what Rachel was trying to do. Horror is very predictable. Make something different, but does it work with a beloved horror franchise as Nightmare on Elm Street? Does it? And making it 3D. They should outlaw 3D movies. It doesn't work. I mean, it doesn't work for me. It may work for some people. It doesn't work for me because it gives me a freaking headache. And stuff like Cloverfield, the first person camera shoddy work doesn't work for me either because I get motion sickness. I can't ride on roller coasters. So how am I going to, function with somebody like this? How am I going to do that? All right. So Rachel just basically saying, we wanted dark humor. We wanted cameos. We got the great Alice Cooper in there. We got Tom Arnold and Roseanne Arnold in there, which now is, Roseanne Barr. It's just, but she says the 3D was just didn't work. It didn't work, but we did it. Maybe if it doesn't work, don't fucking use it. All right. Okay, here we go. Next slide. Let's see what we got here. So I like doing this with some of the bad films, some of the horror merch that comes out with it. Now, of course, there's soundtracks and T-shirts, posters, everything like that. This I thought was weird because you see in the top left-hand corner, you have Freddy, Burn Freddy from Freddy's Dead, and he's smiling. You can go online and look at this. He's smiling. He's smiling like he has no teeth. And then you have Robert, which I believe is the only. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. If anyone has any Nightmare on Elm Street merch, is this the only figure of Robert without any makeup? Because the only thing that's different between the two action figures is the head. Freddy's head and Robert's head. That's it. Oh, and by the way, one of them has the power glove. The Freddy Krueger one. Burned Freddy has the power glove on it. They added that in. So if I'm not mistaken, that's the only thing with Robert, which may be the best collector's item there is now, which he probably hasn't seen many of those, or maybe he has. I don't know. I mean, he's always probably signing gloves and posters and DVDs. And then at the bottom, of course, you have the Barks Root Beer 3D glasses. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to get some of these, they're all over the place. eBay, Etsy, any kind of marketplace. You can get these for, pennies on the dollar. They're all over. There's pallets of these all over the place. I don't know if anyone's, mass producing them, and there's some fake ones going around. But those are the only things I found besides T-shirts and posters and soundtracks. So the merch for this is very limited. But if you can get the Robert one, the Robert no makeup or Freddy Krueger, I think that would be something worth getting. And if you get him to sign that, he might be a little bit, thrilled to see it. If you look at the bottom of the Robert one, the unmasked, the unburned Freddy, you have the is that where Doc pulls the piece of cloth out of the dream world? It might be. I don't know. Who cares? Why am I going on about this crap? Okay, next. Next one. Okay, kills in weird shit. So, as I said, it was Spence, Carlos, and John Doe. The Carlos one is probably the best one, right? It's the kills in this are just weird. Besides his, Carlos is, his head blows up, which is kind of cool, I guess. And then Spence, that bothers a lot of people. Now, does that bother you guys as well? Is the way these kills were? These are not Freddy kills. I don't think Freddy even stabs anybody with his knives, which is a first. There's not really much blood in this movie. It's that too. Well, we'll get to that. No holding back. It's that's also weird. The only one I think that has blood in this movie is when John Doe goes on the bed of spikes. And that's it. So I don't see why this movie's not PG-13. Well, I mean, Carlos's head blows up, but Spence, he gets whiplashed, by Freddy into a crowd of his dad. That's weird. And then, of course, you got the power glove, which pisses everybody off. It pisses me off, too. But at that time, it makes sense. It makes sense. And if you're a guy, who doesn't remember the 80s too well, you would, Michael says, I'm not hearing a whole lot of defending. It's hard, Michael. It's hard. I'm trying. When I go in to do these things, I try to look at the positives. There really isn't any much. We'll get to that. Hold on. All right. And probably the weirdest death of all, is Freddy. Freddy dying. As Dave did that. If you guys remember that. If not, go back to the Slaughterland movie podcast and you'll actually, with Dave McCrae, some of our best and worst Freddy moments. Jordan Moran says, I left more blood in the toilet after my morning coffee. That's why I drink tea. So let's move on to the next slide. Here we go. But what's even more weird is these sperm, these dream demons, which doesn't make any sense. And did you know they had a funeral for Freddy Krueger? When the movie was coming out, they had a funeral. They just had an empty coffin with, the hat, the fedora on, and his sweater. And then if you look at the bottom, let me move myself really quick. LA's Freddy Krueger Day flops. The mayor of LA proclaimed a day for Freddy Krueger. And of course, the religious Reich and a lot of parents were ready to baste him, because how could you idolize a child murderer? But then Robert said, in a comment, you got to separate reality from fiction. I mean, an artist will tell you that, especially an actor. I don't play that on TV. It's tongue in cheek. It's pop culture. Calm down. John says here, I read about the funeral and the Freddy Krueger Day. I actually think it's kind of cool, if a bit cheesy. Yeah, the mayor did it. I don't know why. And then, okay, let's get to the elephant in the room. Freddy's daughter. Freddy's daughter. Now, we all remember why Freddy Krueger got away with him being blamed for being a child murderer. We all know why. It's because of a technicality. We never understood why, but it was a technicality. So when you watch the first movie, just think now in your head that when Nancy's mother is explaining the technicality is Freddy's daughter didn't close her mouth, didn't shut up. I'm sorry, just look at the bus. Didn't shut her mouth. So Freddy wanted to get revenge, not for really being burned alive, but because they took his daughter away. you know, you know, what are your qualms with Freddy's Dead? There's a few acres of movies. It's we're going through them, but so now Freddy's Dead has this mark that puts on. I mean, when I watch the original, I don't think of Freddy's Dead. I try not to, but then I put two and two together, and because Catherine opened up her mouth to somebody, the technicality was that Catherine, whoever she blabbed to, whether it was a police officer or a parent that told the police or the authorities, they went in and searched his home without a warrant. And that's how he got off. So that's it. I mean, that's the so when you watch the first one, ladies and gentlemen, you have to think about his daughter. I'd rather see Freddy being having revenge against the parents for being burned alive. But then, as you see in this movie, in Freddy's Dead, those dream demons give him the power, and he's sitting there like the freaking Shocker, that movie Shocker with Pinkard, and saying, "I want it all," and it doesn't look like he was even burning, or anything. So, yeah, just think about that. Okay. Is there anything you guys want to say before I try to see whether or not this movie is defendable or undefendable? Hey, Vanderhoff, what's going on, buddy? So, yeah, I mean, we're here. We're trying to defend movies. I'm not able to defend. I'm trying to defend it. So the only thing I could say is this. It tried to do something different, but that seems to be a cop-out of all these movies that need to be defending. So I wanted there's a reason why these movies are bad. And for some people, it's because it's not our Freddy. It's not even, this is definitely not part one. It's definitely not part two. It sure isn't three. And then, no, it doesn't touch four. And even if you go to five, I think a lot of you guys would watch five more than six. Could I have fun with this movie? If you sit down and watch the original all the way through part five, for all that it's worth, with Freddy's Dead, it's a breath of fresh air. And then you realize you've been breathing in smog. It's not my favorite by far. You guys know which one's my favorite, and that's part five. I like part five for its gothic imagery. But for what it's trying to be and to be something different, okay. All right. If you're sitting there and watching a marathon, if you watch this, all with, 1 through 5, and then you know what? If you watch 1 through 5, and then you watch New Nightmare, and then you watch the remake, you'll be like, okay, Freddy's Dead is actually refreshing because it's different. It's different. And then, yeah, I mean, Tommy says right here, Freddy's Dead could be worst, at least, if it's not Rob Zombie's H2. Yeah. And you know what? Craig says, for all its faults, Freddy's Dead is never boring. I give you that. Anytime Freddy's on screen, you're happy, but that's through the whole series, isn't it? Um, so here we go. Do you guys think this movie is defendable? Can we defend this movie? It was very hard for me. I mean, I, I, I try to look at what the directors and the writers were trying to do. I think I did a better job with Resurrection. I also thought I did a better job with Jason Goes to Hell because that was going to be part of a different series. So, yeah, that was going to be part of the Evil Dead franchise. So, is it defendable? Is this undefendable? Can we? I mean, it's a bad movie, but can we defend the reason why it's a bad movie? I don't know. So, it's indefensible. Let's take a look. What's my verdict? I can't. I just can't. I mean, like I said, if I watch this in conjunction with the other movies, I could palate it. I can just say, okay, it's like eating pizza every day, and then all of a sudden you get a French fry, and you're just like, oh, that's different. Yeah, I mean, it's just it's not a good movie. It isn't. I tried to look at some stuff, but everything I found just came back to shit avenue. Every road you take just brought you back to avenue. If the 3D takes it away from me, if it wasn't in 3D, I could probably like it a little bit more. Freddy having a daughter, it doesn't make any sense. Hey Simon, what's going on? And some of the Tracy's a bitch in this movie, and she survives all because she can karate kick, and yet Rick can't survive because Freddy was invisible. And No Holding Back says Freddy's dad is the equivalent to pineapple on pizza. you try to eat around it, right? But then some of the pineapple juice just coats the whole top of the cheese, and you're just like, So yeah, guys, Freddy's dead is undefendable. Sorry, Chris, but I just learned how to push that button. If you heard that. So yeah. What are your thoughts? Let me know if you like this movie. It's for what it is. It's still not good. It really is. I'm not going to knock it like some people. Some people, like a few of you guys in the chat are just like, this is atrocity. This is a piece of shit, But then if I said, would you rather have this or the remake? A lot of you guys will probably say, yeah, I'll take Freddy's Dead because of Robert. Robert's in it. Not that Jackie did anything wrong, but he just, had to act with what he had. It's I don't even own this. I mean, I have the box set, but I barely even watch that. And I don't think they play Freddy's Dead much on cable. Or, you can stream it, but I think the cheapest is $3.99, while some of them else are free. So, yep, undefendable. Sorry. Tried to. Couldn't. Didn't think of it. Think of anything else. That's it. And D brings up a good point. I'll end on this because my kids just got home from school. I want to see how their day was. And later this year, we get this indefensible piece of shit and glorious 4K. Can you 4K 3D? Is that even possible? How does that look? It just, instead of seeing all the kernels, you get to see the nuts in this piece of shit. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was it. I'm glad you guys joined me for defending bad movies. What do I got coming up? I think I'm gonna do, and I got to put all of it together. Remember when I did the horror movies on Rotten Tomatoes that just may just try to get to 100%, and we said, no, this movie does need to be 100%. Who is that one person who says this movie sucks? I think I'm going to do that with any movie that's 50% or below. So any of our horror movies through the 80s that are 50% or below, does it deserve to be there? I think that'd be fun, because there's some movies on there. I mean, let me just give you some. I mean, this Prom Night and Terror Train, I mean, they're at 40 something percent. Do they need to stay at 40 something percent, or they need to be lower? But yeah, I'll do that too. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for me. Thank you again. I like doing some of these quick episodes. I know this is probably the longest I've been on for defending bad movies. I think I got one coming up, and if you were looking at the chat, you can probably guess what my next one was going to be, and I'm going to try to defend it bad. I'm going to try. I mean, and Michael, damn it, I tried, buddy. I tried defending, but when you know your client is guilty, you're like Keanu Reeves, Devil's Advocate. When you see your client play with himself, fuck am I doing here? All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for me. Thank you. My name is Frank Reger for Frankly Speaking. No bells and whistles, no fancy outro. That's it. All right, everybody, take care. Bye.